Hello, friends. Come on in. Pull up a rocking chair and sit with me for a spell. Hi there. I'm Bobby Archery, coming to you from my back porch here in beautiful Savannah, Georgia, where the creek moves slow, the breeze carries the stories of yesterday, and there's always room for one more rocking chair beside me. You know, when you live long enough, you begin to realize something. Life is made up of stories. Some are funny, some are a little embarrassing, and some teach us lessons we didn't even know we needed. But every now and then, when you sit back and really look at it all, you can see how God quietly walked beside you the whole way. So today, I want to share one of those stories, a memory from the road behind me that just might make you smile and maybe even remind you of a story from your own life. So settle in, take a deep breath, and enjoy a few minutes here on the porch, because this is Stories and Tall Tales from my back porch rocking chair. Today's story, well, back in the 60s, I think most of us would remember that was a time of rock and roll. I just kind of mentioned that on the last broadcast. Oh, but it was also a time of those muscle cars. You remember those? Boy, that was something back in the 60s. A Pontiac GTO. A Chevy Chevelle Super Sport. Maybe a Dodge Charger. Of course, always the Ford Mustangs. Plymouth had the Roadrunner, and Oldsmobile had a 442. And you still had the Corvettes, and even Plymouth came up with one called the Barracuda. So many more. Yep, those are the things from, I can remember back in the early 60s, and I was getting ready to get my driver's license, and I was so looking forward to having a big car and a lot of muscle, be able to go and rumble with the rest of them. Well, turns out on my 16th birthday, my mom and dad did get me a car. I'm going to have a picture up on the podcast for you to look at. My first car, 1961 Ford Falcon, black, 4-door, 4-cylinder engine, a lot of mouse power. Ford Falcons didn't have any horsepower, it's just all mouse power. That's what I had to drive to school. That's what people got to see me in. Did not make me real happy. What was your first car? You remember? Oh, from back in those days. But I still had my dreams. Had to save up the money. And the day came as I went along, and again, being a radio disc jockey, I had to have something a little bit better than a Ford Falcon to ride around in. So I saved up the money, made a deal with the bank, talked my dad into co-signing with me. $3,850. Where would I ever get that kind of money for a new car? But I did. We ordered it from the Chevrolet dealership. It was a 1963 Chevy Impala Super Sport 327. Now, after getting it, we had to fix it up, and so we had it painted candy apple blue. It had a slapstick Hurst 4-speed shifter in it, a bench seat with rolled and pleated sky blue interior, an organ pipe chrome speakers. Now, I've got a picture I'll stick up on the screen for that, as well as what, not my car, but a car similar would have looked like back in 1963. Wish I had a good picture of it, but I don't. But I'll let you see what kind of it looked like. Had the red line tires and Mixie Thompson spinner mags. Man, oh man, was I the man on the campus. And I could rev that engine and spin those tires and, hey, be able to be the king of the mountain until, of course, there was a lot of others around. Well, muscle cars said a lot about who you were, and boy, I spent a lot of time. And I mentioned about going into debt.
with my dad getting co-signing. That wasn't easy to do. Then on top of that, I had to go to the tire store when I bought those red line tires. They were a little expensive, and I had to put them on a credit card or credit account as they had back then. Same thing with them. I was able to talk them into putting me some Mickey Thompson spinner mags on there. So every paycheck I got, 90% of it went on things for the car. Didn't make Patsy, my girlfriend, too happy. We were always having problems talking about where we was going on a date, what we would be able to do. Now, of course, back then, dating was different as it is from today. Back then, if you was really going on a date, 90% of the time, you probably ended up at the drive-in movie. Don't have a lot of those around anymore, but boy, that's where you'd go. You see all the cars and all your friends all around the parking area of the drive-in movie. Didn't matter what was on. It was what was going on inside the car that made a difference. And wow, those were some times. But Patsy wanted to go out other places. And no matter where we went, we had to be very careful. We'd go to McDonald's. Of course, McDonald's had 15-cent hamburgers back then. Or we could, if I wanted to really spiffy it up, could go to the Crystal. Now, you could get a bag of Crystals. They were 10 cents a piece. So you get 10 of those things in a bag for $1. Get you a Coke and all the things to go with that, with some nice French fries. And hey, she ought to be satisfied with that. But that wasn't the case. Always wanting something a little bit more, a little bit different. And I just did not have the money for it. So we was always having some little discussions about what we would do and what I was going to put on the car, which she would say, not another thing. Well, of course, that didn't work out too well. But I would tool around town in my 63 Chevy and rev up that engine. Oh, it made me feel good. Had a lot of people come over and look at the car and wanted to see the engine, take a ride, and all of my friends. And so, I was the head of my little gang. My brother, Buddy, as we've always mentioned, he was one of the hoodlums back then. And so his car was a little bit different than mine and had a little bit different sound than mine. And we kind of stayed apart from each other. But there we'd be going places. So it happened on this one particular occasion. Patsy and I was going to go up to Altoona. That's a lake. That's about 24 miles outside of Marietta, up the good old 4-lane highway. Got to remember, that was the main thoroughfare back then. Didn't have no expressways, didn't have no interstates, but we had the 4-lane highway. And it would take us about wherever we wanted to go. And we went out, we was going to go to the mountains. So I had made arrangements, went by and picked her up, and we were fixing to head out. My sister, Yvonne, her husband, Tony, his brother, Joe, owned a motel right as you turn to get onto the 4-lane highway. It's called get this, Sandman Motel. Now, isn't that a good name? Sandman. If you want to go in and get some sleep, Sandman was the place to go. Well, I knew my sister and her husband was going to be there, and I needed to talk to my sister about something for just a moment. So we pulled up in the parking lot, kept the engine running. Get that good sound. Oh, yeah. And I went in and talked to Yvonne for a few minutes and came back in, hopped back in the car, backed it up, and started to try to find an opening to get across the 4-lane highway. Well, there it was. I was watching. And all of a sudden, I hit the gas. Off we go, squealing the tires right across the 4-lane highway. And up we go. Patsy, again, got to remember, this was a full bench seat back then. We didn't have bucket seats. It had a full bench seat. Normally, your girl would always sit over in the middle, right next to you. You could put your arm around them, and you just felt like it was really a sweet time. Well, as soon as I spun those tires and made that turn, Patsy went over to the right-hand side of the bench seat, and as far away as she could get next to the window, and she was huffing and a puffing. And I said, what in the world is the matter? Well, a little silence there. Patsy, what's the matter? You didn't have to do that. Do you know how much that cost me? Cost you? I think I'm the one. Said, all you do is do things and tear things up and have to put things on this car, and we don't ever get to go anywhere, get to do anything. And I was like, oh, stop it. Which is more important? The 63 candy apple blue Chevy Impala Super Sport with those red line tires, Mickey Thompson mags. It made me the big fella around the town. Or going out on a date. Well, we kind of fussed all the way. She sat over and she kind of kept quiet. Of course, I just turned the radio up, put on some good old rock and roll, and I was on my way. 24 miles from where we were at up to the lake. And around we go up at Red Top Mountain. We winding down the road. That time of year, Altoona, they always reduce the level of the lake. So it was kind of almost not even a lake anymore. It's just kind of a river. And you had a lot of rocks and all. And we went pulling up to where the picnic area was. And I parked the car and I got out. I went just on down to the river, waiting for her to get out on her own. Finally, I heard the door slam. I wouldn't shut. Slam. And she went walking over to the picnic table and sat down. I walked down to the side of the river and picked up some rocks and started skipping stones across there and just kind of trying to take my time. And I was thinking, why in the world is she so mad at me? I mean, what's so wrong? I mean, after all, it's my car, my tires, and I had that special slapstick transmission in it that just hair trigger on the clutch, and man, that thing would spin them tires. Didn't always want to spin them, but man, you just couldn't help it with the power of that engine, that 4-speed. Why in the world she have to be so mad at me? Well, I walked back up, sat next to her. She turned her head, and I said, Patsy, come on now. This isn't the time for this kind of thing. You know, I didn't mean it. It's just so hard to take off. And she said, you didn't have to do that. And you did it longer than it needed to be anyway. You could have let off, but no, you got to spin those tires. And of course, that made me that much madder. You ever been on a date like that? Not quite what you expected, and the results of what you were looking for. Couldn't have a little kiss, hold hands even. And I reached over and she just pulled back. Well, that just made me madder. I slammed the keys down on the table and went walking back down to the lake. And I said, she's going to have to get over this. I'll just take her home. We're just going to have to break up. I don't know what I'm going to do with her. All of a sudden, as I'm skipping those rocks and talking to myself, I heard the sound of the door shut and the engine crank. She took my keys. She was in the driver's seat of my car. Ain't no way this is going to happen. The next thing, I hollered at her, Patsy, get out of the car. Patsy, turn it off. Well, all I could hear was the sound of the engine. And the sound of the rocks spinning under those red line tires, throwing rocks out the back. And she starts up the road, and I could hear she was trying to shift. She didn't really know how to drive a straight shift, especially mine. And I heard the gears, and she was heading on up the road. I was hollering and screaming. I picked up a rock like I was going to throw it at, but I'm not going to throw a rock at my car. I just hollering, you better stop. You better stop. And I started running and running. And all I could hear was the sound of that transmission and those gears against each other as she went further and further away. Surely she'll stop and come back. And I was so mad. Ever been mad like that? Talk to yourself. That's it. She's off my list. She'll never get over what's fixing to happen. This just happened. Well, I'm the one that's walking. Did I mention 24 miles? And the further I went, I just knew she would be there. No sign of the car. I couldn't hear the rumble of the engine. I start walking up those back roads and back to the main area. And a car started coming. And it wasn't mine. You could tell just by listening to it. And it comes and it just passes me by. I keep walking. This is it. She is out of my life. What in the world is she going to do? She just better take that car home. All these things going through your mind. Kept walking. Pickup truck comes down the road. I start waving at him and I said, "Can I get a ride?" Well, he had his wife and one of his kids in the seat of the truck. He said, "You can hop in the back. I'll take you down to the 4-lane highway." I said, "We live close by and you can get a ride from there." Oh, so I jumped in. Now here I am riding down these curvy roads in a cool winter afternoon up near the lake, 24 miles from home. What a ride that was. It's amazing what your mind will go through. How mad you can be and how many spiteful things you can think of that you're going to do to somebody. She is going to pay for this. We finally make it to the 4-lane highway. I get across and had to stick my thumb out and try to hitch another ride down the 4-lane highway and try to get back to our house. Now, you got to remember, no cell phones, no smartphones, no even CB radio at that point. I could stop at a store and use a payphone, but what good would that do? Nah, I didn't want to tell my mom and dad what happened. It's getting darker. I'm walking. Stick that thumb out. Finally, a car did stop. I got in. And I told him, I said, "I really appreciate this. I'm going down to Marietta. If you can just take me as far as you can go, then I can get home from there." We rode, and, I never realized how far 24 miles is. It's pretty far walking, but when you're in a car with a stranger and some people there and it's so silent and they kind of looking at you like, is he going to kill us? Is he going to rob us? Is he going to hijack us? So I tried to make small talk and tell him, well, my girlfriend and I was at the lake and she had to leave and she took my car and didn't want to say she stole it. Well, she did. Didn't want to tell him she grinding the gears out of it, which she was. Probably burning the tires off of it, which she would. I just kind of said, well, we just had kind of a little misunderstanding and I just need to get home. Yep, things were quiet. Their car didn't make a lot of noise. It just went down the road. We finally reached where the red light was. It's a road where I could get off. It wouldn't be too far from the house. I got out and I was walking. And again, the longer The closer I got to home, the more things that went through my mind. But then I come to Morningside Drive, start walking down the houses, and I'm looking as much as I can. So finally I start running. After all that I'd been through that day, here I am running down Morningside Drive to our house. A couple of neighbors saw me and said, "Hey, Bobby, what you doing?" "I'm headed home. Ain't got time to talk." And I get on down close to the house and I see my car sitting in front of the house. It's there. Well, now, what am I going to say when I walk in? And what am I going to tell her? This is not going to be pretty. Well, you get inside. Mom and Dad were there. The keys were on the table. No sign of Patsy. I said, "Did she tell you what she did?" "Yeah, she said she left you at the lake." "And y'all didn't come get me?" "Nope, we didn't take you. We wasn't going to go pick you up." "Where's she at?" Your dad took her home." What'd she say?" "Nothing. She said, let me know if Bobby makes it home." "I don't you dare call her. I don't want her to know anything." I stomped off to my room. I think I remember Mom and Dad laughing kind of behind me. I go in and, I don't know why. It just makes you feel good to slam the door. Bam! So I'm in my room thinking, what am I going to do? She can't get away with this. So jump on the bed, turn on the radio, start listening to the music again. What am I going to do? She went off and took my car. She can't get away with this. What am I going to do? Well, for those of you that remember those young days of being in love, dating, having your name written on somebody's books that they carry around the school. Of course, if you're cool, you always got a girl on your arm. You always got somebody to go with, somebody to be with. But why would it be her? I'm just going to have to change girlfriends. That's all it is to it. I've just changed girlfriends. Those are the types of things that you went through. Not like today. If you're going to break up with somebody, all you do is text them. Wow. Don't have to worry about them saying anything back. They may text you back in big letters. "Well, I didn't want to go with you anyway." Boom, So many things could happen back then, but we didn't have those kind of things then. So I pick up the phone. I dial a couple of numbers and slam the phone back down. She should be calling me. I shouldn't have to call her. She took my car. So I don't even know if the thing still runs. So I took the keys, went back outside and cranked it up. Sounded good. Got out, looked around, lifted the engine just to be sure everything was there and in one piece. Well, she did grind those gears pretty hard. I better see if it'll drive. So I jump back in and off I go down the road. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And shift the gears. Everything seems to be okay. What am I going to do? So I just drive on over to one of the hangouts where all the guys would be. I go pulling up, and of course I got to back off on those glass packs and let it come back out. And all the guys come over and say, "Hey, I heard Patsy drove your car." How could they hear? If it's not bad enough that I got left at the lake and she took my car, she had to tell somebody about it. And all the guys started coming over to laugh and said, she said that wasn't no big deal. What's a big deal to me? I said, yeah. She said, you kind of deserved that one, Bobby. What do you mean? What would you do if your girl left you at the woods in the lake, cold weather, having to walk? And well, that would never happen to us. Our girls like us more than she must like you. Well, that just didn't fit well. So I said, well, we'll have to figure this thing out. So I jumped back in the car and backed up. Of course, I had to let a squeak as it went off. It took off with the car and had to have a little bit of wheel spilling just to settle the issue. And I go riding around. Finally said, well, I am not going over to her house. So I'd ride around, pull back up to our house, got out, went in the house, told Mom and Dad, I said, that's it. Patsy and I was going to break up. That's going to be the end of it. Mom said, get a hold of yourself, boy. You know, you deserved it. Well, now I've got two against me. So I thought, well, maybe at least Dad would back me up. Dad, you've drove our car before. You know how it is. That's why you don't like to drive it. You can't hardly handle it because it spins them tires. He said, yeah, son. He says, but there's a difference in just letting off the clutch and shifting the gear and just kind of squiggling the tire a little bit. Then sitting there and laying rubber and watching all that money come off them wheels, that rubber being laid down behind you and the smoke that's up there. What you gonna do when the tire needs to be replaced? Dad. And about that time, the phone rang. And it was Patsy. Should I take the call? Should I talk to her? Is that it? Gotta breathe deep for that. Mom said, Bobby, talk to her. Okay. So I go over and I pick up the phone. So what do you want? She said, I want to tell you, I owe you some money. Oh, yeah? You think that's it? I said, yep. Now I know you were right. You can't drive that car without squealing those tires. And you know what? I enjoyed doing it. You going to let me do it again? Folks, those were wonderful words to hear instead of, I don't want to be with you anymore. We're not going out again. You can have your ring back. All she said was, oh, well, next time we go out, I'm driving. Learned a big lesson from then. We did stay together. Like I say, we're fixing to celebrate 59 years of marriage. I always look back and talk about that time. But you know what? That's just one of many of the times when a boy and a girl are going together. That they're going to have some differences. Things are going to kind of get heated. Each one's going to get mad. But you know what? There's nothing like making up. And you learn from those things. As I was walking, as I was sitting in the back of that truck, I was sitting in the back of the car with those other people and going down the road in silence. When I pulled up at the hangout and the guys were there, I didn't have her with me. Things were just not the same. Because you see, having somebody you love, having somebody you care for, and having somebody you can share with makes a big difference in your life. I hope you have someone that you can hold hands with, someone that you can tell stories to, someone that loves you back and says, hey, next time I'll drive. From my back porch, that's about all this old rocking chair has for today. I'm sure glad you stopped by. You sat a spell, shared a little time with me. Life moves fast out there, but every now and then, it's good to slow down. Take a breath and remember what really matters. You know, the Bible reminds us over in Psalms 46:10 to be still and know that I am God. And maybe, just maybe that's what we've done here today. Just been still for a little while. So until next time, this is Bobby Autry, reminding you, no matter where you've been or what you're going through, there's always hope. There's always peace to be found, and there's always room for one more. I'll be right here waiting on you. So pull up a chair anytime. God bless you. I'll see you next week.